All right, folks, welcome to another edition of XenTegra's Webinar Wednesdays. We got a great group of folks on the phone today with me. We're going to be talking about UberAgent and user experience today. So we're going to take you through how XenTegra is leveraging UberAgent in our managed service offering. And I got a lot of great guests, and we are going to dive in. So welcome and thank you all for joining us this morning. And if you don't know, today is a double header. We're doing UberAgent in the morning, and we're going to be talking about SD-WAN at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and have a customer coming on and sharing their input and why they picked Citrix SD-WAN. So if you're interested, head to our website, sign up, and we still got plenty of spots. So, all right. So my name is Pete Downing. I'm the CMO, CTO for XenTegra. I am your host today. You probably have heard my voice if this is your multiple webinars that you've done with us. And on the phone, I have two great guests today, and I'm trying something new. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Brian, if you could just give yourself a quick intro and welcome, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Pete. I'm Brian Clark. I'm the Director of Managed Services here at XenTegra. I come from Emory Healthcare, where I've successfully deployed UberAgent for tens of thousands of users. It's going to be a very interesting look at how to accurately and quickly get user experience metrics that you can quantitatively analyze and look at long-term trends. Very exciting stuff. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Dominic.
And yeah, on the UberAgent side, we have Dominic. So Dominic, feel free to give yourself a quick intro.
Yes, thanks, Pete, and thanks for the possibility to present today. Much appreciated. My name is Dominic, and I work for Vast Limits. That is the company behind the product, based in Germany, Cologne. I am a customer success engineer, which means that I'm responsible for delivering a great product and great support to you. Before I joined the UberAgent team, I worked as a consultant, doing mostly Citrix XenApp, XenDesktop projects.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for taking the time today and joining us from Germany. So appreciate you doing that. So, all right, so let's dive in. We got a great agenda today. What I'm going to do, and for those who have joined us in the past, I like to do polls and kind of get a feel for the audience and get you guys involved. So I'm going to be putting those up in a little bit. And then we're going to jump into UberAgent and talk about UberAgent. Dominic's going to take us through a quick overview and then dive into the best part, which is a demo. So he's going to show us some of the key features of UberAgent and how it can help you guys assess user experience and a bunch of other great functionalities and features. And he's also going to show how it ties into Splunk. So if you guys are using Splunk, again, they have great tie into Splunk and integration. And then finally, we'll cap it off with how UberAgent and XenTegra are working together. And I'll do a quick, who are we? And as always, I encourage question and answer throughout the session. So please ask questions via the Q&A dialogue, which brings me to my next slide, which is housekeeping. So we are in GoToWebinar, and there is a Q&A dialogue. So feel free to send question and answers throughout the session, and I will interject them where I see fit. I like to keep it interactive and keep Dominic and Brian on their toes. So definitely ask questions throughout, and it helps if it's content specific, because then we can answer it while we're talking about that content. So please, please, please ask questions. All right, so let's throw up some quick polls. I got 3 today, and they're kind of simple, and I'm just curious. So the first one is around kind of user experience. So what is the biggest issue in your environment around user experience? So pick, what you think is the biggest issue. And, it doesn't have to be, rocket science here, whatever first comes to mind. All right. So again, I can't see who's answering. And this is going to help us kind of cater the conversation a little bit. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes, or not a minute, a couple seconds. And I like to get at least 70%, so it's statistically relevant. So hopefully, we can get the numbers up. So again, I can't see who's voting, so don't worry. Let's get these numbers up, and I'm gonna give it about 10 more seconds. Come on, folks, let's get a couple more votes in. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. So we got a spread here. So I'm gonna share this so everybody can see it. So a lot of you said endpoint performance. So I'm kind of that's interesting. So that, I think, honestly, that could be coupled with logon time. So I know Dominic's going to spend some time talking a little bit about that. And then the second one was application performance. So I find that interesting too. So, and really the goal here is simple. We want to show how you can not only assess the experience, but also go in and triage the experience. And that's how XenTegra could potentially help you if you are looking to leverage UberAgent with Splunk. All right, so I'm gonna ask you to pick two. I can't control more than two, but pick the top two. And what I would prefer is pick one virtual and one physical. All right, so what platform endpoints do you use today? And this is just more of a curiosity kind of question, and just to see what type of endpoints are mainly used in your environment. So pick two, like either VDI or server-based computing, and then a physical side as well, preferably. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds. And again, if we can get this up to at least 70%, that'd be good, but it doesn't have to be. I just like throwing these out here, get you guys involved. All right, about 5 more seconds. Going once, going twice, going 3 times, and I'm going to share it. So a good chunk of you are doing, the classical XenApp use case, server-based computing, which, we expect. And then a lot of you are obviously using physical endpoints. And, I think you're going to start seeing a huge shift in the next 3 to 5 years to, what I like to call thin endpoints, thin clients or dumb devices or whatever you want to call them. So good data. All right. So thanks for taking that poll. And then my final poll, more of a market data question for us, market research. Are you using Office 365 today? So are you doing it with Exchange on-prem? Are you doing it Exchange online? Are you currently deploying it? Not on the radar, or not deploying it, or you use Google Chrome Enterprise? I usually get one of those. So again, I'll give you guys a couple seconds to answer this. And again, I can't see who's answering, so don't worry. And yes, we got one Google. We always get one or two. All right, going once, going twice, going 3 times, and we're gonna share that out. And a lot of you doing Exchange online, so pretty cool. I keep seeing this number shift depending on the audience I'm targeting. I would say about a year ago, it was heavily Exchange on-prem, and it's slowly starting to shift to Exchange online. And I always get no. And if you are in the no bucket, definitely reach out to us. I'd love to understand, the use case, why you're not considering it. Is it, HIPAA? Is it security, et cetera? And we might be able to kind of educate you on, where Office 365 could play. So, all right. So thank you for taking part in those polls. Again, they just help us cater the conversation a little better for you guys. And as always, I encourage questions and answers. So definitely start putting question and answers in the dialog box. And with that, we are going to jump over, and I am going to pass the baton over to Dominic, and he is going to jump into an overview on UberAgent. So Dominic, I'm going to make you the presenter, and ready, set, go.
Okay, give me a second. Okay, you should see my Chrome window now.
Yes, sir, we do.
Perfect. Okay, today I would like to show you UberAgent. I have a few slides to do an overview and to show the architecture, but most of the time will be demo time. I will show the actual data collected by our agent, some visualizations, etc. Okay, let's do a real quick, super quick one-word intro. UberAgent basically provides visibility into your end user computing. Great, so let me explain that a little bit further. I only need one slide for this. So people have been monitoring servers for, well, years, decades, whatever, right? I think you know exactly what's happening on your Exchange servers or database servers. Of course you do, at least you should do. But what good is the best always up, always fast server if the machine that is sitting right on the user's desk is having problems of various kinds? Hence, organizations are realizing that they need visibility on that end too. They want to know what the performance of the machine is, which applications are being used, or if they are crashing all the time. They also want to see if machines are secure and compliant. And that is quite a big list of things organizations want answers for. And UberAgent gives exactly the information you need for these answers. It provides what we call quality metrics, which you don't easily find anywhere else. Also, quality metrics are most of the time these metrics which are hard to get out of Windows. UberAgent stands out because it's extremely easy to deploy. It's not the typical enterprise software where it takes dozens of consultants and half a year to implement. Instead, it's a small MSI package, and the installation is like next, tell me your Splunk server finish. It's actually that easy. On top, we have proven scalability to 100,000 of endpoints. Okay, next, where we are doing our business, we do it worldwide. Most of our customers we are not allowed to name here, so we listed just some of them. Our most significant installation is for a customer who uses UberAgent for more than 250,000 laptops worldwide. So you can see UberAgent scales quite well. Now that you know what we do and where, let's see how we do it. There are two components. First, there's our agent, which you deploy on your endpoints with your preferred enterprise deployment tool, be it Config Manager, Ivanti, the Splunk deployment server, you name it. Our agent runs on Windows 7 and above. So if you want to do physical deployments or VDI, we cover all eligible Windows operating systems. The same for server operating systems. If you're going to do Citrix XenApp or VMware Horizon, that means server 2008 R2 and above. If UberAgent is running on a Citrix or VMware machine, it automatically enables various metrics which are only available on these kinds of machines. And of course, we are aware that we're not the only ones with an agent on your systems. You might already have an antivirus agent, a backup agent, a software deployment agent, and so on and so on. And that's why we come with the small footprint. We use approximately 30 megabytes of RAM, less than 0.5% CPU, and no disk I/O at all because the agent runs entirely in RAM. That's not completely true. We write a log file to disk for troubleshooting purposes, but you can even turn that off. Second, the Splunk dashboard app. You might have heard of Splunk. It is a big data tool which reads vast amounts of data and makes that data searchable. It is best known in the security space to collect log files of firewalls, routers, and so on. But it can do so much more, and we make use of this. That means we do not have our own backend, but we rely on Splunk. We provide an app for your Splunk environment, which does the whole visualization for you. And we ship more than 50 dashboards to visualize our data collected by the agent in Splunk. But of course, you're not limited to them. You can build your own dashboards anytime. That also means you have to have a Splunk environment already in place. But don't worry, it is very easy to set up, and you find installation instructions on our website. The architecture at a glance, it really is that simple. Just install UberAgent on your physical machines or your Citrix servers or VDI machines. Point it to your Splunk environment. This could be a Splunk environment on premises or in the cloud. You can send the data via TCP or securely via HTTPS. And if the network connection gets lost, you don't have to worry because UberAgent buffers the data in RAM. So when the network connection gets reestablished, the data is then sent off to Splunk, so there's no data loss. Okay. I said we use Splunk. That is true. That's our only full supported backend. And we ship pre-built dashboards for Splunk. We also support Elasticsearch, Microsoft OMS Log Analytics, and Apache Kafka as backends, but we do not ship any dashboards for these backends. So if you want to go the hard way and do everything on your own, feel free. Okay, that's it with slides.
Cool. I'm just going to really quickly, just again, please feel free to ask questions. Dominic's, he knows this stuff inside and out, and he encourages good questions. So as do I. and then
Yeah.
whoever can stump Dominic, I don't know, I'll think up a cool prize.
Okay.
Cool, man.
That is how Splunk look like. If you never saw Splunk, UberAgent is just one or just another third-party vendor which sends data to Splunk. If you're going to Splunk base, that is the, let's call it, app store for Splunk. Every big vendor out there has a Splunk app, like VMware, Microsoft, F5, and all these vendors have Splunk integrations, and so do we. And you can all then combine these data from all various kinds in your Splunk environment and search for all these data. Of course, we are focusing on UberAgent today. And so what UberAgent is able to show you, you can basically see in the menu structure, we can show you data on various or from different angles, from different perspectives. We can show you data on a per machine level, like how your machines are leveraging GPUs, if they're doing 3D rendering, if they're doing video encoding or decoding. We can show you every blue screen on your endpoints, which endpoints were affected, which users were affected, what was the actual blue screen, and which was the responsible process. You can also do a machine inventory. That is very interesting for physical endpoints, like we collect information about the CPU, about the storage drives, how much storage is free, or how much storage drive is left. We can show you the BIOS version number, all these kinds of classical machine inventory data. We have a lot of applications, application information. I will dive into some of these dashboards later. We also have data on on-off transitions. That is what Microsoft is calling boots, standbys, and shutdown operations. And we can show you how long it took to boot a laptop, which was the process responsible for delay, and also how long did standby operations took and shutdowns. And because we are everything in the UberAgent, everybody in the UberAgent team is an old Citrix guy. We're all old Citrix fellows. We have a lot of Citrix specific dashboards, like we do a Citrix site inventory. So when UberAgent is running on a delivery controller, it automatically recognizes this and starts to get starts collecting data from the Citrix site, like which delivery groups are available, are the machines registered or not, are they in maintenance mode, yes or no, is the licensing good. We have with the latest version, with UberAgent 5.2, we introduced NetScaler, or nowadays Citrix ADC monitoring, so you can have an eye on your gateway performance or your virtual server performance. Yes, so we will start in the sessions menu today, and we will talk about user logon duration. There was a significant amount of people who voted user logon as too long in the poll earlier from Pete, and I will be happy to talk about user logons. Of course, user logons are always too slow. However, regardless how long they took, they're always too long. And UberAgent has a specific dashboard for this, and you can find it in the sessions menu here. We are looking at the last hour at the moment. You can change that, for example, look at the last year, the last 10 weeks, or the last minute, or whatever. And we're looking at every host here. You can you could filter this dashboard to show me just the host in a specific Citrix delivery group or of a specific hardware manufacturer. So you could, for example, compare HP to Dell laptops, for example, if you open another tab and just do filtering on another hardware manufacturer. You could filter this to a specific OS, so just look at Windows 10 boxes or just look at Windows 7 boxes, everything possible here. Then speaking of logons, you might know that a logon consists of multiple parts. first thing to happen is there has to be a user profile loaded onto the local system, which took 6 seconds on average in the last hour for all hosts. Then you may have group policies which have to be applied. This took roughly 20 seconds here. You may have a logon script configured in your AD user objects, or you have a logon script configured in group policy, and you have a shell, which is typically explore.exe, which took this amount of seconds to start. Then we show you logon duration over time, and this is very good to see changes in your environment or see the effect of changes in your environment. If you hover over with the mouse here at the right side, for example, over group policy logon scripts, you can see the effects on your users when doing changes to logon scripts, or if your colleagues are doing change, more badly, if your colleagues are doing changes to your logon scripts, and how this affects logon duration. Don't think of the last hour here, think of the last week. That's very, very interesting to see how the logon duration changes over time. We then show you some top 10 players here. So this guy is most affected by 55 seconds. We also see the most affected hosts here in terms of logon duration. And below we have the data table with all the details for every logon we saw in the last hour. And if you click on one of these guys, or already did this, a new tab opens and you can dive into this single logon. And you see again the infos for the main phases here. You see some additional Active Directory information. So the Active Directory site to which the user authenticated, which was the authenticating domain controller. How long did it take to discover the domain controller? And if there is a group policy loopback mode like search or replace configured, then we will show you it here. We also see every GPO which was applied during logon, and you see the duration of these GPOs here. And if these were successful, everything except 0 is bad. And you might be familiar with these kinds of information, as Citrix did a great job in the last versions, and they added a lot of these information too. But UberAgent can show you way more, and we can show you this in the logon process performance table, where we show you every process which ran during logon. In the first column on the left, in the lifetime column, you see when the process was executed, so at the beginning or at the end of the logon, or in the middle, or if it lasted during the whole logon. And we also group these into known types, or UberAgent groups these into known types. So these processes here, like winlogon.exe, is a well-known process which runs during every logon. So we know this belongs to session setup, and we group it into session setup to make the troubleshooting easier for you to see the different phases of a logon. It's also colored in red here, and the other types are colored in different colors, like green or whatever.
So Dominic, I got a lot of good questions, but I'm gonna so Luke, that's a good question. I'm gonna put yours kind of towards the end, and Todd, Brian can cover kind of the ballpark figures around Splunk, and because it's a pricing question. But so one of the questions that came up, Dominic, as you talked about Splunk, was, does it also integrate with Splunk Cloud, or is it only Splunk on-prem? So that's one of the questions that came up.
It's both.
Both.
Yeah,
okay.
It works with both. Yes, we can leverage HTTPS, and this works together with Splunk Cloud.
All right, cool. And then so Albert's asking, since you're on this window now, can you change type? For example, CTX is related to Citrix VDA. Does that make sense?
Not in this dashboard. We can map processes to applications, not in this logon process performance dashboard.
Okay. Cool.
Okay,
That's it for now,
so,
and I'm saving some of the other ones for towards the end because they're more pertinent, I think, as we get towards the end. So.
okay. So what we see in this Logon process performance is we see every process which ran, and we also see the parent process. So we can say which process started which process. So basically we can see a process hierarchy. And that is very useful when troubleshooting Logon scripts, because we can see here is gp-script.exe/logon, which is the official start for the group policy Logon script processing. And we can see what's happening without ever looking at the Logon script. And we can see that PowerShell was started by gp-script.exe, and PowerShell started the PowerShell script, the XenApp Logon PS1 file, which then did several things. It started conhost.exe, it started net.exe, which tried to map some server shares here. And with these information, you can dive into your Logon scripts or dive into every logon and analyze every logon in your organization. And by the way, we have this information for every logon ever seen in your environment. Okay, let's move to application performance. We are now in the applications menu here. You see we have a lot of dashboards here, and I'm in the application performance dashboard right now, where it's all about application performance. Again, we're looking at the last hour on every host, and we have some top 10 charts here. We start with the CPU per application top 10. So Google Chrome is using the CPU the most often. It generates a lot of IOs. It consumes a lot of RAM, and it also produces a lot of network throughput. You can also see the GPU computing percent here, or the GPU memory allocation in megabytes. And if we scroll down, you see every application UberAgent saw on your systems. And what you see here is the mapping of processes to applications, what I explained earlier. If we scroll down to SAP Logon, for example, you can see we show you every detail of the applications here, like how many CPU time it consumed, the average CPU usage, the average IOPS generated, and much more information here in this table. Too much to cover this all. But let's go back to SAP Logon. And as you see, we group these two processes here into the application SAP Logon, and this is built into UberAgent. You don't have to configure anything for this to work. That is, it's not a list we maintain, which you have to currently update. It's an algorithm built into the product, which automatically groups processes in these applications. And this works for every application installed via an MSI. This works for Java applications. So if you're troubleshooting Java and you open the task manager, you see Java w.exe and you don't know which application it is, UberAgent knows it, and UberAgent shows you the Java application name here in this table. It also works for AppV packages, and it works for these Windows 10 modern UI apps. Out of the box, you don't have to configure anything. I would say this algorithm works for 98% of all applications out there. If it doesn't work, you can configure it in our config file. Just say my application equals process 1, process 2, process 3, and then UberAgent will show you your application just as SAP Logon here in this table. If you want to see more for this specific application, again, click on it and a new tab will open and you can troubleshoot this application. You see some averages here and some totals. You see every user which executed SAP Logon in the last hour and how many CPU was consumed, how many IOPS were generated. You also see this information per host. We have some data over time here. So you see how this SAP Logon performed over time in terms of RAM and CPU. And we have some network specific data here, which is very interesting, especially for the Citrix admins, because when the user calls and says Citrix is slow, basically you do not see any error in your director, for example, application is behaving fine, CPU is fine, RAM is fine, the machine itself is fine, but still the user says Citrix is slow. And what could be a factor is that the application is trying to communicate with backend servers, and these backend servers are performing bad at the moment. And the metric you want to measure here is the send latency. So latency is basically the time it took the application to send an answer to the backend server and waits for a response. So what we see, or what UberAgent shows you, is every network connection the application is doing. So for SAP Logon, don't think of Amazon here, think of SAP backend server 1, SAP backend server 2. You see every network connection, you see the IP. If UberAgent automatically does an DNS reverse lookup, so if we see an IP, we try to translate this into a name. You see the protocol used, you see how often the application tried to send and how often this was successful. You see reconnects and retransmits, so errors in the network. You see how much data went to this specific target and how much data came back. And you see the send latency per target. So you can then monitor your backend servers. And if one of these here has a very high number, there's something going wrong on the servers. It might not be responding, it might be fully loaded, it might be off, and then you can prove it's not Citrix, but it's backend server.
So Dominic, as you paused here, another good question from John Decker. Good question, John. Can you capture real-time crash logs that crash a non-persisted VDI session? And maybe that leads you into another dashboard, but really good question since you're on the topic of like applications and errors and all that good stuff.
Yeah. When talking about application errors, yes, we see every application error. Yes, we see every application crash, we see every application hang. We can see this over time. You can see which hosts are mostly affected, which users are affected, which applications are affected. And you can, for example, click on this snagit.exe here, and then you can analyze further what's going on with this application. Yes, we see in real time what's happening with application crashes. Real time is by default 30 seconds for us. We have multiple timers which you can configure, or you can configure the interval when this timer runs, which is by default 30 seconds for all these performance counters, application crashes, and so on. If the question goes more to the stop errors or blue screens, the source for this is the event log. So if the event log is on a persistent disk, then we see all the errors, because of course we can only grab the information from the event log after the reboot happened. So the event logs needs to be on a persistent disk.
So is it fair to say that, so let's say something happened within the 30-second window and it crashed, and you might not get the tail end, right? And then I'm trying to think, with MCS, you can do a personalization disk. Can you defer your logs to that? Then that way, potentially, they could be salvaged, or?
Yes, we will gather all these application crashes.
Okay.
Depends on what you're seeing. If you're looking, for example, at process performance, we do every seconds a poll on all applications, and we might miss some spikes in between. But when we talk about application errors, we will see all errors happened, or which we see all errors which happened in the 30-second window. So you don't miss an error.
All right, cool. Good questions, everybody. Keep them coming. Again, Todd, John, and James, I'll answer the pricing questions as we get towards the end because Brian will kind of cover how this is packaged and how Splunk works and all that kind of stuff. So bear with me on those. Okay, cool. And then I'll talk about some of the competitive stuff towards the end. I'll ask the stumper questions towards the end. So yeah, keep going, Dominic. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about applications a little bit further. We're still in the applications menu here, and we are in the applications usage dashboard. At the top or one above, you see the application inventory. So UberAgent starts once per day and collects every application installed. But which is much more interesting is the application usage. So UberAgent is able to get that I'm using Chrome at the moment. This is my window I'm sharing through GoToWebinar, but of course in background I have Word open, I have Excel open, I have another Google Chrome instance open. But UberAgent is able to get or to collect that I'm using Chrome at the moment and sends this data to Splunk. So what you see here is the difference between your inventory and your usage. So when you're doing migration from, let's say, Windows 7 to Windows 10, and you need to repackage all your 20,000 applications, just use UberAgent, let it run for a couple of weeks, and see which applications are really being used the most often in your environment, and start with these packages. And maybe you can ditch 1,000 packages because they're not used at all. And we have this collected here in this dashboard. You see the foreground application over time. There is always a foreground application, which means that the top is here 100%. And of these 100%, you can see that Adobe Reader is used this much, Firefox is used this much, not just installed, but really being used by your users. If we scroll down, we see some nice top 10 charts again, and we see the table with all the details. And if I click on Firefox, for example, I see more details for this application. We see the usage over time. You know, there's always this one guy when you do a migration, which says, oh no, I really need this application. I can't go to a SaaS app, for example. With this dashboard, you can prove him wrong. You can prove that he never started this application at all. You can also see if your finance guys are using SAP or whatever finance application they're using at the end of the month the most often. So you, for example, if you're hosting this in Azure, you can shut down some of your Azure boxes through the whole through the month and just start them at the end of the month to save costs. You can also monitor your version migrations. If you're going from one version to another, you can monitor if there are still users who are using the old version, and you might want to tell your help desk to call them to please update the software to the latest version. Okay. What we see a lot is that that organization starts to migrate classical Windows apps to modern SaaS apps or web apps. That's why we decided not to only monitor Windows applications, but also web applications. And to monitor these, you have to sit in the browser because the browser is a very closed system. Google Chrome has 0 APIs to query information from the outside, so you have to live in the inside. And this is what we're doing since version 5. We're shipping browser add-ons, which you see here at the top. We ship these add-ons for Chrome, IE, and Firefox. We will also ship it for the newly redesigned Microsoft Edge in some of the later versions. And what you see here is what we saw on the dashboard before, application usage for classical Windows apps. You see here the usage for web apps. So now UberAgent, as we are living in the browser, we are able to see that I'm using this tab at the moment. You see I have a lot of tabs open here, my UberAgent slide deck, the old user login duration dashboard, and so on. But the add-on is able to see that I'm using this tab right now, and we send this data to Splunk. And with that, you can see which web apps are really being used by your users, which web apps you might want to optimize for. Maybe you want to book more resources in Azure or AWS or whatever. And you can also see how many or how much time your users are spending in the browser, because the most published application out there is in the Citrix world is Internet Explorer. You won't believe it, but that's the most published application out there, and you can actually monitor how many time your users are working in the browser. You can also troubleshoot these applications. UberAgent is able to show you how long did it took to load a web page in terms of network throughput and the whole render thing. So how long did it take to render all these JavaScript, HTML, PHP, CSS stuff. And we can see to which, with other websites, is this website communicating. And if we click on this, for example, you can see if there are any HTTP status 400 codes. So if there are errors, so this is also an indication why this web app is slow. And you can monitor classic Windows apps and modern web apps with UberAgent.
So another question that came up from Chris, he asked, is there a way to group a subset of machines by PC name in UberAgent? So kind of plays into what you're talking about a little bit right now. So basically grouping, I guess, machines together, and then can you drill down from the machines, I guess, to see the data?
Yeah, what you can do is you can filter for specific machines. For example, here we're looking at every host because the filter is host in star at the moment. But for example, you could do host in RDS star, and then this dashboard will only show data for every machine which starts with RDS in its name, for example. Or you can just look at a specific Citrix delivery group or a specific Citrix machine catalog. If you want to compare it with another Citrix delivery group, just open a new tab, go to the same dashboard, do another filter, and you can compare Citrix delivery groups side by side.
Okay, cool. So you guys can group by, if you're grouping by OU or if you're grouping by delivery group, you can drill down based on that. And then that's how you would represent them if you went to the machine tab? Or is that, okay, cool.
Okay. What time is left, Pete? 5 minutes or so?
5 minutes or so, and I got one kind of good question for you if you want to save a minute or two to kind of talk about, kind of how you guys compare to some of your friendly competitors out there. So there's been a few questions around how you guys compare to, I won't name names because I don't like to make this about, I was just say your competition. So some of the usual suspects that are out there today.
Yeah. Let me do the last dashboard, and then I'm happy to answer all competitive stuff, right?
That works, man.
Okay, perfect. So we're looking at Citrix NetScaler at the moment, and because we do not have that much time, I focus on the ADC inventory. Just to give you an idea what we can do there, just install UberAgent somewhere and point it to your Citrix NetScaler, and it will start collecting data from it. And in this inventory dashboard, you see all your NetScalers here. You see your top hardware models. So we're looking at VP access only. So this is the only bar in this chart here. We see the firmware versions you have in your environment. And of course, you can see every NetScaler box. And then just click on the box if you want to see more details. I already did that for the sake of time. And then you see some basic settings here for your NetScaler, like how many CPUs are there, how many SSL cards are there. This is a VPX, so 0. You see all your specifics like the host ID, the MAC address, and so on and so on. You also see high availability settings here. So is high availability working, or is this configured to stay secondary? When was the last HA status change? You see licensing settings, and you see all your gateways. You see every virtual server on this box, and you can click on it and then drill down to this virtual server to see how many data went through. You see all your IP addresses, and this is very interesting because you can see the IP address, netmask, and the type, like is it NetScaler IP down below. And you can see if there's management access enabled. This is good for a NetScaler IP. This is bad for VIPs. So you can do an alert here to monitor if there's something wrong or a misconfiguration for your NetScalers. You also see every certificate on your NetScaler sorted by expiration date. So this certificate here expired this year. And with Splunk functionalities, you can create an alert here. So we can click on open and search. And everything in Splunk is a search. Every chart is a search. Every dashboard is a search, just a search. It's like a SQL language. And you can modify these searches and create your own dashboards. For example, if you want application performance data and errors in one dashboard, feel free. It's just a search, copy it and create your own dashboard anytime. And you can create alerts. So here in this example, modify the search to show you certificates which are expiring this year. And then you can do an email, you can do a ticket in your ticketing system, for example. Everything is possible, and this is all base Splunk functionality. It's all built in, everything is there you need for alerting or reporting. Okay.
Cool. And then quick question around the NetScaler, since you were on the topic, Charlie asked, do you need to install UberAgent on NetScaler, or does it use APIs to get the stats?
It uses the Nitro API. Okay, so cool. if you're using UberAgent for site monitoring, you have an UberAgent deployed on your, or you have to have an UberAgent deployed on your delivery controller to get this working. And this is possibly also a good place to pull the NetScaler via the Nitro API. Everything is, by the way, everything's documented on our website, uberagent.com, how to get this working.
All right. So yeah, so can you take a minute or two to just kind of talk about, how do you guys complement some of the quote unquote competition out there? Because there's a couple questions around, how do you compare to certain vendors and or do you complement vendors out there?
Yeah. Best thing is to test UberAgent for yourselves. I mean, I'm the vendor. What should I say? Of course, I would say UberAgent is the best monitoring solution out there. I would say we use Splunk so we do not have an own backend. We use Splunk, and that is a very good combination of our lightweight agent, which collects very good and very quality metrics on your physical and virtual endpoints. And then you have Splunk in the backend with all its powerful search capabilities, all these integrations with other vendors, so you're not limited to the UberAgent part. You can combine UberAgent data with, for example, firewall data. You can combine it with VMware or the resource usage of your VMware hosts to get this end-to-end monitoring. And that's the power of Splunk, and we make use of this. That's all I want to say on this competitive thing.
All right, cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is pass the baton back to me and kind of tee up Brian for a quick second to kind of talk about, where does UberAgent and Splunk plug into XenTegra. But again, I encourage question and answer, so keep asking any questions, and we will try to answer every and all question. If we can't get to your question, we'll answer it after the fact. So Brian, if you want to just take a minute and talk about, where does UberAgent fit into the XenTegra managed service stack? And can you kind of cover, there's a couple questions around, pricing and how it works with Splunk, and if they don't own Splunk, what's kind of the budgetary, what does budget look like, right?
Yeah, no problem. So thanks again, Dominic. That was very in-depth, very great information. I remember every time I sit through it, it just blows me away how much stuff that gets. And if you've been working with XenApp as long as I have, it just kind of, man, where was this stuff 5 years ago? So XenTegra offers UberAgent as a service. We will host both the licensed and Splunk licensing for you, the UberAgent and Splunk licensing. We can happily deploy it, very quickly, in less than 15 minutes, and onto an image for you or a workstation, to give you a chance to, drive around the block, play with it. You can also download the license for free from UberAgent. They have a 30-day trial. Splunk itself is free for 500 megabytes or less. So the way Splunk licensing works, it's based on data ingestion. So when UberAgent sends data into Splunk, it's how much data is UberAgent sending to Splunk. And on average, we see VDI anywhere from 15 to 30 megabytes, and Windows 10 VDI, and then XenApp to be about 65 to 100 megabytes. When you download the UberAgent client, they ship you 2 GPOs that you can use to manage how much data UberAgent sends. So they have a very low data volume GPO setting, where if you don't want to purchase a lot of Splunk data, Splunk data you buy directly from Splunk, or you on Splunk Online, Splunk Cloud, or you can go through a VAR. And Splunk pricing is tiered, so the more you buy, the cheaper it becomes. The same way with UberAgent, the more you buy, the cheaper it becomes. UberAgent is licensed on a per user, per client, Windows 10 client or Windows 7 client or server licensing, depending on which model fits best for you. You can purchase it straight through XenTegra. We are the only gold partner actually here in North America. So when you buy UberAgent as a service from XenTegra, you get the full package all ready to go. We update your UberAgent configuration. We can help you write individual Splunk dashboards if you want. The Splunk instance is hosted in our data center in Atlanta. We have SSD storage to back it up, powered by actually pure all-flash NVMe storage is actually how it runs. So we have very fast queries. We have multiple dedicated Splunk instances. It's very fast. We also tune UberAgent. It's a very powerful tool. It comes with a lot of great stuff out of the box. We can even refine it even more to get very specific metrics that we found based across all the tenants that we already have, to really narrow down specific criteria on what you guys should look for. And then we can help you monitor it. So Splunk has a built-in notification engine. We can send those out to you via email. If you have a Twilio account, we can link it there and send you SMS. So it's very powerful, very easy to deploy, and very convenient for you guys. Did I knock out all the pricing questions that you got, Pete?
Yeah, and James said no. So can you kind of talk about cost? And I think he wants to know, is this only available as a service, or can they go, standalone as well, and we just kind of implement it?
Oh, absolutely. So there's two main things you got to either purchase. You got to get the on-prem or the cloud version of Splunk, which you buy as a single product. And then you can purchase the actual UberAgent license itself, and you can get that straight from us. But you don't need to get it as a service from XenTegra.
So yeah, so James, you know what? Pop me an email, or Brian an email. We can get deeper into pricing. The tech guys are not typically good at, good guys to start asking pricing, but we can work with you on the different pricing models. So,
and we'd be happy to set up any POCs or demos with you if you wanted to run Splunk on-prem. We can help you deploy the UberAgent demo as well. And both Splunk is free forever at 500 megabytes or less, and then the UberAgent is free for 30 days.
Cool. All right. Anything else on your side, Brian, as far as the MSP side?
Not for this. I think we're good. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, shoot Pete an email. We are happy to help you. This can really illuminate some long-term problems that you've been having, particularly with login or application performance. This is the absolute product that you want to try. So thanks, Pete.
Cool. Well, yeah, so thank you, Dominic and Brian, for taking time out of your days. I know you guys are busy, but really quickly, so XenTegra, just in case you're new to XenTegra, we are a partner of UberAgent as well as Citrix, Microsoft, a bunch of other partners. And this is Andy, our founder and CEO. He founded XenTegra on a couple premises. One, he really focuses on customer enablement. And so we do a lot of webinars, online workshops, on-prem workshops, et cetera. And the goal is simple. We want to enable the community because we recognize that our customers have these huge stacks of solutions and sometimes just need help, right? And so we provide a lot of free, enhancements and enablements to our customer base. But parallel, we also want to form true partnerships. And so we really are true partners to our partners, and we view them as another customer. So we really work hard to enhance our partnerships with the various vendors. So who is XenTegra? It's simple. We are, obviously in the classical sense, a value-added reseller. So we can sell you, UberAgent, we can sell you Citrix and a handful of other partners. But parallel, we can also come in and help you implement it. Hey, let's face it, IT doesn't sleep. You guys probably have long laundry lists similar to Brian, Dominic, and I, and you can't get to it. So, hey, you can bring us in and we can do it. So, we do have a full consulting bench as well as a support bench. We can offer up support contracts, support engagements, et cetera, and we can augment staff. Now, the great thing about working with a partner is obviously multiple solutions, single vendor, single invoice. So, if you're already working with a partner, especially one of the larger, what we like to call LARs, I challenge you to really think about the value that they're bringing to you and really consider, what value that XenTegra can bring to you. So here's a snippet of like our key partners, and you can see, we have a pretty good handful of partners, and we work very heavily across the board in the end user computing space. But parallel, we're getting more and more into managed service offerings. So we do a lot of work with Microsoft. We're a Citrix service provider partner, as well as a couple other MSP providers in the stack here. So that brings me to my next conversation. So yes, Brian runs our managed services, and he runs the data center. And so we do offer a full managed service stack as well as support engagement. So for example, if you don't want to support Citrix or you want to, let us go chase the bone, we can. You can set up an engagement with us and we can be your support for Citrix. Or, hey, maybe you need environment support. We can do that as well. So we do have the ability to do support contracts and be your help desk as well. We are just a Microsoft Gold partner and a cloud solution provider. So we can sell you anything Microsoft as well as help you with Microsoft Azure. And we can manage that or we can implement it either way. So again, MSP Stack. And if you have any questions on that, you can definitely reach out to Brian and or I. So here's a snippet of our customer base. As you can see, we cover a wide variety of customers, and it all depends on where we are in the country, right? So up here in the Northeast, for example, we're heavily in finance and healthcare. You go down south, it's a mix. It's finance, healthcare, and logistics, let's say. So we don't really focus on a vertical per se, and we just have one philosophy. We want to do right by our customers, and if we're doing anything wrong, you tell us, and we're going to fix it. And no customer is too big, and no customer is too small. Again, if you haven't bookmarked this page, please do. We do a lot of free trainings, a lot of workshops, a lot of webinars. If you put /feed at the end of this, you will get an RSS feed, so you can save it and track it that way as well. So I'll be putting a lot of new events up for the second half of the year, so keep an eye out for that. And then finally, Citrix. So first off, thank you to UberAgent, Vast Limits. They are one of our key sponsors at our dinner this year at Synergy. And for those who don't know what Citrix Synergy is, it is the user conference for Citrix. And it's really focused on everything end user computing. Now they're trying to evolve it into being more industry focused, but at the end of the day, it's a great conference. I recommend it. It's down in Atlanta, Georgia this year, so a little easier for the East Coasters to get to, a little harder for the West Coasters, but they kind of flip-flop every year. Why I'm showing you this slide, if you have a renewal coming up, please let us know. Why? Because we take those dollars and we invest them back into you, and you can use those dollars to get to Synergy, if not at a lower cost, even free. If you already renewed, we have a deal where you can get $200 off any ticket price. So you go on the site, take a look at the ticket prices, and we can take $200 off the top no matter what. So if you're interested in getting the Synergy a little cheaper, let us know and we can help you out with that. And that is it. So I'm going to take one more scan of the Q&A, and if you have any final questions, please throw them in. I'm going to give it about another minute while I kind of close out and thank everybody for joining. And if we didn't get to your question, definitely let me know now, so we definitely answer it. Again, I want to thank Brian and Dominic for taking time out of their busy days today to join us. And especially Dominic, thank you for the great demo and overview into UberAgent. And Brian, again, thank you for taking time. I know you're a busy man and you got a lot going on. So guys, thank you for taking the time today. And I don't see any more questions, so we are going to call this a wrap. And thank everybody for joining, and everybody have a great rest of their Wednesdays. And if you're joining us this afternoon, we'll see you this afternoon to talk about SD-WAN. Have a great day, everybody, and see you on the flip side.